My name is Mark Letourneau, and I took the Blasphemy Challenge a while ago. And some people ask me more details about the demonstration that God does not exist. So here it is. When I was younger, I was looking at the sky at night, lying down on the bench in a boat with my friends and looking at the sky and trying to feel the immensity of it. And it was very puzzling for me because I was imagining an edge to the universe, and soon after I could feel that there was bigger than that, and so I was fixing another edge further away, and I could feel there was something bigger than that, and so on until I became dizzy about thinking about that and gave up. And I felt like a paradox. Infinity felt like a paradox, actually. I couldn't limit it, but at the same time I needed to limit it, and I couldn't resolve this paradox. So later on I thought a little bit about it and defined a little bit what I could feel. What universe are we in? That's the first question, and by resolving this question we'll resolve the question of God. So here it is. There is only two ways that the universe can be, fundamentally speaking. It is either finite or infinite. You cannot have both. So that simplifies a lot the question, and we can answer that question that way that I will show right now. If the universe were finite, you would have a smallest particle, a biggest particle, a smallest time, and a biggest time, a beginning and the end. It would be finite everywhere. So let's illustrate that. So in space we would have the biggest particle. Let's design it that way. The biggest, the size of the universe would be this. And here we'd have the, I'm going to make it big a little bit so you can see it. We'd have the smallest particle. And we have the smallest time and biggest time, the time continuum going that way. This is the beginning, this is the end. So that would be the finite universe, finite universe. So does it make sense? Does it make sense? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Does a finite universe make sense? If this exists, if a finite universe was the universe that we are living in, we would find the smallest particle. The problem we have with this is that a scientist one day, find out that they can cut this particle in two, and we have smaller particles. That's happened in the past. We have seen that many times. We discovered the atom, that was the smallest particle, and after that we discovered something smaller, the proton, the neutrons. We found the electrons and other particles, very exotic particles that are smaller. So if we zoom that particle and you cut it in two, you have two smaller particles. And in the future, we'll always find smaller particles that we would be able to cut in two, or in three, or in four, or whatever, by shooting particles at them, and we'll find smaller particles. Because if a smallest particle would exist, it would have to have a volume equal to 0. This particle here, the volume would have to equal 0, because if it equals something, you can divide it. But the problem we have is the world that has a volume cannot be composed of particles that have no volumes. That's a paradox. And that resolves the question here. There is no smallest particle. The finite universe in space, in the smallest, doesn't make sense. And here too, because how come a universe would be empty, would contain something? Because that would be the universe as such, but outside you would have nothing. How come nothing can contain something? That's a philosophical question that one can ask, and I thought about it a long time, and I succeeded to get an answer to that, meaning that when you have nothing, you cannot have something. It's like the opposite of this. The world cannot be made of little nothings, and nothing cannot be containing something, the universe. So that's a rational paradox to think that the universe can be finite. In space, now look at the time. We can reflect the same way about the smallest time we can find. You would have to have a time equals 0, and because if it equals something, you can divide it, and you wouldn't have the smallest time. So, but the problem is a real time cannot be formed of unitary time equal to 0. That's another nonsense that make this universe, finite universe, irrational, and it doesn't fit rationality. And the same thing for the beginning and the end. The problem with that is if we define the universe as everything which exists, you would have to have here at the beginning nothing, absolutely nothing, and the universe would be born here and continue that way with the time, all right? So the problem with that is if nothing exists before this beginning here, absolutely nothing, I'm not talking about relative nothing, I'm talking about absolutely nothing, nothing could have happened. Because when there is nothing, nothing can happen. There is nothing that can happen. There is nothing. You see? So that makes this beginning an impossibility. You cannot have nothing and then something, because you would have to have something that creates here. And if there is something before, so the bar is not right. You have to go back that bar, that beginning, until there is really nothing before. The problem with that is it creates a paradox. When there is nothing, it's forever. And so the only way that we can get out of that is or there is nothing forever or there is something forever. And since we are here, so the existence of things are there, so that means it's always been there. So the universe always been there. So right there, we have a demonstration here that shows that God cannot exist. A God that created the universe cannot exist. The universe has to be infinite in space and in time. That's the only choice we have. Else, this is not making sense. And also, we have not to forget that the concept of God doesn't come from, it comes actually from the sky. The people who came from the sky, spacemen, cosmonauts who came from the sky, and they did some work here on Earth, and they gave message that they created the Earth and the atmosphere and the human beings, and we thought they created the whole universe. In fact, they just came here, and they engineer life here. They fixed the Earth to be suitable for life in the atmosphere, and we thought that when they referred to the sky, they thought that was the whole universe. That was not the case. That was a misinterpretation of our ancestors. And what the religions are doing right now is carrying the old perception of our ancestors, dragging that today in the age of science, where we can understand stars and exo life out there, and we can understand how to travel into space, how to create life in laboratories, and so it's an anachronism. We should right now try to understand that the religions are talking about beings who came from the sky, and more precisely extraterrestrials, and they came here, and what we call UFOs. They're all over the place right now, and they are trying to wake us up to their existence, and we should see that. If we don't agree, that's okay. You don't have to. You're free to think whatever you want, and I hope that all together on this earth we'll make peace, because we understand that we are different, we have different philosophies, different opinions, and that's okay. I am happy to have done this demonstration, and So have a happy life. Bye-bye.